It was a classic slice of Brit-pop that stood head and shoulders above its 90s rivals.
She came from Greece, she had a thirst for knowledge.
It's such a huge anthem, it really is, and it just seems to, I mean, it seems to just be able to sort of reach out and just touch a lot of people.
For the first time, Pulp tell the real story behind the making of a pop anthem from their working class roots in Sheffield.
Welcome back!
Yeah. She said, fine.
Did Jarvis's mum ever think he'd make it as a Brit-pop star?
Second time.
He spent half his life in his bedroom writing music.
Discover what the band really thought of Jarvis's keyboard playing.
I mean, it sounded pretty rubbish. Sounded quite sort of Toy Town and 80s.
What is the mystery behind the lyrics and that Greek girl?
I say in the song she studied sculpture at St Martin's College, which is actually untrue.
This is a journey from the beginnings of Britpop to the hit which was to move thousands at Glastonbury.
I've never felt anything like that. I imagine I probably never will experience anything like that again.
This is the story of common people. It's 1995 and Princess Diana spills the beans on life in a royal marriage. Nick Leeson breaks the bank. And Hugh Grant is quite literally caught with his pants down. It was also the year that saw the birth of a new musical movement, Britpop. The Blur versus Oasis vendettas highlighted the class issues at the root of the scene. Meanwhile, in Sheffield, a bunch of northerners were creating a pop anthem that would reflect this class war and go on to become the sound of that summer.
Common People was one of the, the top 5, I suppose, enduring Britpop songs ever.
Pulp frontman Jarvis Cocker grew up in the working-class Sheffield suburb of Intake. The realities of life in this northern town would be reflected in the lyrics of Common People.
Now, to say Intake itself wasn't really that rough.
Well, it happened years ago.
I think it's become a bit rougher now. There were rough kids about and stuff, but it weren't so bad.
Listen to your sister.
Although we'd been born in Sheffield and stuff like that, none of us felt that at home in it, in that you were kind of caught between two worlds. Like, if you went into town on the Friday night, you'd run the risk of getting beaten up for looking a weirdo or something. But then we found all the students who came to Sheffield got on his nerves as well. Except you could go to their parties and nick beer.
Jarvis Cocker is returning to his hometown to begin a journey, one that will reveal the roots of Pulp's 90s classic. And it all began here, the place where the band originally rehearsed Common People back in the summer of 1994.
Couldn't tell, she might go and tell your mother.
Hi! Very posh up here, haven't you?
Oh,
Great.
welcome back!
Yeah, good, isn't it? Yeah.
The rehearsal room was in reality the attic above a pottery shop run by the family of Pulp's drummer, Nick Banks.
Yes, I say we've made these pots rattle in our time, haven't we, Nick?
Yeah, how are you?
This is what being in the band's all about, waiting for the restaurant to turn up.
Oh, look who's there.
Those late band members are guitarist come violin player Russell Sr. and keyboard player Candida Doyle.
Hi. What you been buying?
Oh, just fine.
Pulp haven't worked together since their 2001 album We Love Life.
Well, that's your suitcase.
This is the first time the group have been back to their old rehearsal space in 10 years.
All right, Malcolm.
Right. Nice to see you here.
Pulp has had its fair share of musical talent since the group formed in 1978. A total of 23 musicians have been part of the band. But it was the vintage of 1995 featuring Russell Sr., Candida Doyle, Nick Banks, Steve Mackey and Jarvis Cocker, which would finally achieve chart success with Common People.
When did we start rehearsing here?
Just...
It must have been around the time when Common People were done, because we had to be down in London recording, and then we had to rehearse there, didn't we?
Yeah. I do remember like rehearsing to it here, and there was a bit of an appreciation from some, because it's like tin walls, and so I think we did it, and then there was some like, you know, Larry Hughes on choppers with air rifles going, oh, it's all right, I know that one, which I think was the first we got, other than I'm going to nick your car and smack you.
It would take another 4 months of band rehearsals before the British public would get its first sniff of the indie classic.
Well, that stuff weren't there, was it?
It's not exactly as it was.
No. Wow, look.
Archive material.
That's one of our songs.
Which song was that?
What song is it?
That's Seconds, I believe.
Oh, bloody hell, I'd never got that.
Oh, this is the original Sugar. I'm sure we've probably made a cup of tea with this. I'm looking for the sell-by date. 1195. See, it could have been. This sugar could have been used at the time.
Yeah, might not be sugar though.
The events that led to the song being written mainly happened in London, but it wasn't that long after I'd moved down to London, and so the sensibility was definitely that of somebody moving from up north down south.
September 1988, and it looked like Pulp were heading for pop oblivion. With no hits and their deal with Fire Records coming to an end, Jarvis decided to dump life up north in favour of a fresh start as a film student at St Martin's College down south. But he didn't abandon music completely, as he embarked upon one of Pop's shortest ever career moves, working part-time in a Notting Hill record shop.
I never served behind the counter. I was just in the back filing cassettes. You know, I was very, obviously, not considered responsible enough to be allowed to touch money or anything. I ended up working here one day. I filed some cassettes, and then the second day I was supposed to be working here. I'd been out the night before and made the mistake of taking some LSD, and it hadn't worn off by the time I was supposed to be coming to work. So I think at the time I was supposed to be at work, I was actually hidden in a tree on Hampstead Heath, because that seemed to be the only place that wasn't dirty and frightening. That was the end of my employment at the Notting Hill Music and Video Exchange.
After he finished his studies at St Martin's, Jarvis would return to that same record shop, this time to buy the keyboard he would use to write Pulp's biggest hit. By then the band would have re-emerged with a new lineup.
I bought the keyboard in the record and tape exchange, and then just walked home and decided to have a go on it, you know. These keyboards are good because they play everything for you, and when you can't play anything very well, that's quite handy.
And it was in this West London flat where he would come to compose the tune that would become the basis of Common People.
So you still can't play it. So that was basically operating at the very outer envelope of my keyboard skills, using 2 hands. Only 1 finger on each hand. One day I'll learn how to play it properly, I suppose. I'd written it seemed kind of catchy. But I didn't think too much about it, you know, I didn't think, wow, that's a masterpiece. I just thought, oh, that could come in handy for something.
Jarvis and I met to try writing some songs or messing about with some ideas, and he brought along a small little keyboard, a Casio keyboard that he'd bought, and in the course of the night one of the things he played was this little riff.
It sounded quite sort of Toy Town and 80s and sort of like a Cod de Peche mode or something like that, so it didn't sound great to me.
I mean, it sounded pretty rubbish.
I didn't really think much of it, to be honest. I thought it was overly long. Nothing much seemed to happen. Didn't seem to be particularly going anywhere.
To me, it sounded like the kind of fanfare for the common man. One of those melodies that feels like it's quite important, you know.
Although it doesn't really, does it? Especially, you know, Keith Emerson can do all that da-da-da and stick the knife in his keyboard, can't he? But I can't do that.
But there was one member of Pulp who spotted amongst all of Jarvis's bum notes the tinkling of a classic song.
Just thought it was great straight away. It must have been the simplicity of it, and you could just tell it was a really powerful song then.
1994, 16 years after forming, and Pulp were finally gathering support amongst the music press. But they still couldn't get a hit record, with singles such as Lip Gloss barely denting the pop charts. By now, it was a case of grunge is dead, long live Britpop, with an array of exciting British bands seeking to dominate the charts. Meanwhile, Pulp were now armed with a hit of their own. Jarvis, by this time, had drawn on his experiences from St Martin's and written the lyrics to common people.
We wanted to be a pop band at the time. We were very excited about the idea of pop music. And I think that was just a reflection of having been on the left field for so long, that we were just gagging for someone to listen to us, and that's where pop music is. It's you get an audience.
They were just like a joke band who sang about chopper bikes and old English spangles and had this ridiculous nostalgia for the glorious 70s, and no, people just didn't take them that seriously.
I think everyone thought Pulp would be like denim or something. They were like some sort of, you know, 70s retro outfit who were really entertaining, quite kitsch, but would probably never ever sell a record. So they were sort of on the outskirts of it. But the one thing they had, of course, was Jarvis Cocker, who, you know, set them apart from everyone else.
Complete the lineup. Dave D. Jarvis.
Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch.
It's right for 2 points. Well done.
You just only had to watch him on Pop Quiz, and he was the funniest man that you've ever seen on Pop Quiz, but at the same time knew so much about pop music, and that was the other great thing about Pulp. They weren't scared of pop music.
Right. 2 points. What happened next?
You know what happened?
I would have thought that Ian Brown, hope I get a point for that, lead singer, went up to the sound man and shot him through the head because the sound quality on that was wrong.
That was when Jarvis really became the front person of Pulp and some sort of national treasure on a low-key level at that stage. You know, people thought, God, that guy's good.
Whose albums include Oxygen and Equinox? Jarvis!
Jean-Michel Jarre.
It's right for 2 more! Right, 34 plays 45. Last question, 2 points. Who is Priscilla White, better known as? Jarvis?
Priscilla Black.
It's right, you got the right. Jarvis!
Jarvis's star was finally rising.
There's many things that make Jarvis special. He's eccentric. He's a complete one-off. Yeah, totally idiosyncratic. There's no other Jarvis. It's not like Cliff Richard, who's a bit like Elvis, but not quite. Jarvis is just Jarvis.
He was just like a bloke, you know, a bloke from the street, and he didn't really try too hard. It's just, if it's natural and it comes out natural, and I think that's within the songwriting and the music and the way you look and perform, then you're on a winner. Because natural will always come up, you know, on top.
Before I joined Pulp, basically were my favourite band. And I used to go and see Pulp, and you just, because Jarvis was so unusual, he was so interesting to watch on stage, and the music was different, it was unusual, it was good. You just knew that given the right exposure, he could be absolutely, you know, a huge star.
So Pulp had the charismatic frontman. All they now needed was someone who could turn a great song like Common People into a classic pop record.
As I say, we realised we'd written something that was quite big, slight pretensions to anthemic or whatever, which, you know, is a dodgy area to work in. Rock anthems, got to be careful, because you can end up sounding, you know, you can go into Belfast Child, Simple Minds territory, you know, or even Through the Barricades. Very painful. So we had to find, we wanted to find somebody to produce it who could give us a big sound, but not make us sound like tossers, basically.
God save the Queen, the fascist regime.
That search led them to the man who produced God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols, a 1970s punk classic that shook a nation. Chris Thomas would go on to produce an eclectic range of smash hits.
Got this in pocket.
And the band were convinced he had the magic touch that would propel Common People up the pop charts.
I think it took some guts on his part, because I think his previous thing had been The Lion King. You know, so, you know, credit to him for taking on this rag-ass little band and turning it into proper pop music, really.
He basically got the job straight away because he walked in, he had a neck brace on. He thought, you're our kind of person, you know, you've got problems, you know, you're not, something not quite right about you. We're made to work together. Kind of, we're at that speed now. Nice gentle pace.
Jarvis Cocker, Steve Mackey and producer Chris Thomas have returned to the Townhouse Studios in London, where Common People was produced in 1995.
Then, if you spin on to the end, so... I personally wasn't looking for any particular sound at this point, more than anything else, then concentrating on getting the performance, getting a sort of something to start with. But I wouldn't say on my part there was no end in sight. You know, I mean, I didn't sort of think, oh, this song's going to end up sounding like this. Not at all. The whole thing, well, you know, you just start working, and it's like you start painting, you know, you start filling up a few spaces.
Pulp were given 2 weeks to make Common People, cramming all 48 recording tracks with an array of instruments, even finding space for a Rolf Harris stylophone.
Part of the song, this is good. It's the original bass drum part in with the track, or in with the drums. There's the violin there, Marshall's part.
Sawing away. And there's
We used crappy keyboards, and Chris did his best to make them sound as good as he could.
They had changed them very much, actually.
But that was it. We just didn't, you know, in later records we used, you know, we used orchestras and things like that. But this time we were just very focused on what we could do with what we got.
And they were just coming up with, like, you know, stuff all the time. It was like just trying things on here and you know, so that it just sort of built up into this sort of, I don't know, it was like an old curiosity shop.
Jump shop orchestra, yeah.
That was an important sound.
It was a very important sound.
Maybe we had to put it on there because we run out of tracks.
I would say almost certainly, because it suddenly just appears, yeah. Let's have a look just around that area and find out if there are any other things on the keyboards here that are doing anything weird.
Yeah,
oh, there's another one there. And again,
enough.
There's another one.
Yeah, obviously that laser sound was the way to... It just needed something to kind of go, wham, it's, you know, wake up, the song started now, or whatever, do you know what I mean?
Right at the end, it was, I want to put a rhythm guitar on. It's like, oh, we've got millions of guitars here. He said, no, I want to put an acoustic on. And it brought the whole track together. It was just a brilliant idea. I mean, that acoustic guitar just welded all these disparate elements, you know, together.
Sing along with the common people. Sing along and it might just get you through. Laugh along with the common people. Walk along even though they're walking at you.
Finally, Pulp had created a Brit-pop classic. Sadie Frost reveals how she ended up with the central role in its video.
I just got a call asking if I wanted to do it, so I'd get thrown a couple of £100, which was fine, because a bit of pocket money.
The key to Common People's success lies in the lyrics. They tell the story of a working-class lad who falls for some posh totty at college. To get to the root of the inspiration for that narrative, it's back to Sheffield and Jarvis's formative years.
But then again, I cannot pretend nothing's wrong. Looking at my...
This rare home movie footage shows the then 16-year-old Jarvis Cocker exploring his passion for film, but it was music that would become the driving force in his life.
I grew up with music because my brother was a musician. And my husband, ex-husband, was a musician, and he was a friend of Joe Cocker. In fact, Joe, as on occasions, babysat for Jarvis. From being a very small child, he could always hear people rehearsing around him, and he learnt to sleep through most of it. But he never wanted to do anybody else's music. He only ever wanted to do his own. It was always something he'd written. It was always in his bedroom. Plinky plonking, as I used to call it.
Although Jarvis came from a working-class part of the country, his upbringing was positively posh compared to the working-class hero of Common People.
He did have a kind of like vaguely privileged childhood, I'd say, really, and though I don't think he likes to admit to it. So no, he wasn't really, I would say, one of the common people. Maybe set a little apart from the common people, but always wanting to be one of them, in a way, himself, I think.
Pretending the best that I can, hoping to lose the...
He used to lock himself up in here, didn't he? You know. That's when I made him go and work in the market to make some money and meet other people, because he spent half his life in his bedroom writing music and cutting himself off from everybody else. I thought it was about time he went out and met people. The market traders did him a power of good and stopped him being so airy-fairy.
The miners' strike of the 1980s would influence many songwriters. It tore apart Jarvis's home city of Sheffield. Jarvis was in his early 20s, and Russell Sr. had by now joined Pulp. But the class struggle issues of the miners' strike would mirror differences between these two band members.
I was in Sheffield when all the miners' strike stuff was going on, and I remember Russell at that time been really involved in that and going down to pickets with a crash helmet on so he couldn't get photographs taken by the police and all this stuff. And he was always trying to get me to go along, and you know, to my shame, I said I don't believe in all that stuff. I just didn't believe in politics full stop, so I didn't want to get involved in it.
I think it is political, you know, with a small p, and I'd always been political. I'd you know, was sort of flying picket in the miners' strike and kind of the enemy within, and I guess I'd always wanted the band to be more political. It seemed like a rather frivolous thing to be doing in the era, to be in a pop band.
Common People is widely viewed as Jarvis Cocker's finest hour. The acutely observational lyrics he wrote led to him being compared to the talent of writer Alan Bennett and film director Mike Leigh.
So it was quite a shock to me to find myself writing a song like this. And I think the only thing I could think that triggered it off was the move from Sheffield down to London, because I saw, you just see more of society. There's more, there are more extremes in London. For a start, you see people with money.
She had a thirst for knowledge. She studied sculpture at St. Martin's College. That's where
At the heart of the story in Common People is a posh girl from Greece and Jarvis's tale of Saxon class. But who is this elusive figure?
No smoking environment.
Jarvis is returning to St. Martin's College, London, to meet Head of Arts John Carson in an attempt to try and find her. As a film student at St. Martin's, he would come to meet the Greek girl who would inspire him to write Pulp's 90s hit.
Inga was Swedish, Susie was German, Mary Irish. Where's the Greek girl now?
Well, she wasn't. But she went on our course. That's one of the mysteries that maybe we're going to find during the course of this programme. We might actually find who this girl was. But the thing is, because I say in the song she studied sculpture at St. Martin's College, which is actually untrue, because she was on this same crossover, so she might have studied fine art at St. Martin's College or something else like that, but it didn't scan, so I had to say
she
sculpture.
from the painting
it's artistic licence, you know what I mean? So I don't know. She could have been doing anything.
She had a thirst for knowledge. She studied sculpture at St. Martin's College. That's what
I think after we'd been at college one day, a few people went out to the pub for a drink, and we're having a drink, and that was when she suddenly piped up with this idea that she was going to move to Hackney and live like the common people.
like common people. I want to do whatever common people do.
It turned out that she was from quite a well-to-do background, and somehow she thought it would be interesting to go and live in a kind of scummy area and see. She found that exotic in some way.
See what I could do.
And this was something that, coming from Sheffield, where basically everything was a bit scummy, I didn't really understand what the attraction could be in going and living somewhere like that. Part of the song is that I'm sexually attracted to this woman as well, so you know, it's not as cut and dried. I didn't want to kill her, I wanted to shag her, you know, so that's part of the that's an important aspect of the song. Important aspect of the song.
You want to sleep with common people like me, but you didn't understand. She just smiled and held my hand. And went as far as
It weren't like I lost sleep about the fact that I didn't cop off with her. I never even made an attempt. She was kind of, you know, vaguely attractive. In the song, obviously, emotions such as being vaguely attracted to somebody don't really go over well in music. So when I came to write the song, I changed the facts a bit and made it that she liked me and that she wanted to sleep with me, which was absolutely, totally a lie.
Jarvis's less than romantic brief encounter would become immortalized on record. Pulp knew they had a hit on their hands, but it was a time when the class war between Blur and Oasis was at its height. So before it could be released, it needed a hip, sharp, brash video. The band would turn to the darling of the Britpop world, Pedro Romani, to bring to life the biting lyrics of Jarvis Cocker.
When it came to sort of creating the structure of the video, again, half the work was done by the lyrics. It wasn't like I was a dreaming visionary. There's a song line that says, I took her to the supermarket, so we did a scene in the supermarket.
I took her to a supermarket. I don't know why, but I just started somewhere. So it started there.
To me, it was like being given a Mike Leigh script that suddenly arrived in a 3-minute format with a soundtrack by Phil Spector, you know. So why wouldn't you want to work with those lyrics when they were so good and so accurate, so poignant, and also so sort of delicately witted?
You want to live like common people. You want to see whatever common people see.
Sadie Frost was established as a bona fide film star, having previously starred in Francis Ford Coppola's remake of Dracula. But it was her friendship with a band that would see her drafted in to immortalize the girl who inspired the song.
I just got a call asking if I wanted to do it, so then I'd get thrown a couple of £100, which was fine, because a bit of pocket money. And I think because I was so involved in acting in Hollywood, and actors often don't think they're cool, most actors want to be musicians or rock stars. I mean, not that I ever did, but it was just for me, especially amongst the guys I was around, was really cool that I was in a Pulp video.
I want to live like common people. I want to do whatever common people do. Want to sleep with common people. I want to sleep with common people like you.
I'm not saying she's the same as the girl in the song, but she was near enough for me.
I took her to a supermarket.
I've been in a lot of videos before, but it was not particularly music I liked, so even though I was in it just for flash or whatever, it was just exciting to be part of it.
And if Jarvis's mate Michael Jackson could have a dance routine in his video, then Jarvis was determined to strut his stuff in one of Pulp's. But not everyone was convinced he had what it took to match the king of pop on the dance floor.
We had this like 30-second of the song that we needed to do a dance in, and he kept saying, "Oh, it'll be all right, I'll work it out on the day." And I was like, well, you know, getting a bit nervous, thinking, can't you sort of show me roughly? He said, no, it'll be all right. So whilst we were filming something else, he just went away with some of the kids that we got in the video, and literally they rehearsed this thing.
I can't remember the first part. I think it's like sing along with the common people. You do this, sing along, and it might just get you through, because that's like you're moving through some double doors or something, like in a saloon or something.
Sing along with the common people. Sing along and it might just get you through.
Laugh along with the common people. You know what I mean? You belly laugh. Laugh along even though they're laughing at you. And the stupid things that you do, I don't know why we got the windscreen wiper at that point. Because you think that poor is cool. I think that's supposed to be like a cool pose. So I made that one up on the day and managed to teach a few of the other extras in the video it. If you look in the video, not everybody is very synchronized, but you get the kind of vague idea.
If it had been choreographed, if it had been proper dance, it would have been rubbish, but it wasn't. It was fresh. It had the detail and the honesty of Jarvis Cocker's world, and that's why it appeals to people. It's not the norm. He knew how to front it, he knew how to dramatise it, and that's really rare.
Sadie Frost played the girl who would inspire Jarvis to write Common People. But back at St Martin's College, Jarvis is still seeking clues to reveal her true identity.
Okay, and look what I found. It's a catalogue from 1991.
All right, yeah.
I thought maybe if you flick through it, you might see somebody you recognise.
You think? What about her? It's only the Greek person. I don't think it's her, but then, you know, she might have taken to not wearing so much makeup and cutting her hair. I don't know. Well, you wouldn't want to meet somebody who you'd... I mean, it's slightly snidey, that song, isn't it? The sentiment of it, so it'd be a bit embarrassing meeting. You know, I've had that in the past where I've written songs about girls and then met them after. And they've slapped my face, and I deserved it. It's a bit embarrassing when you've kind of said something a bit iffy about somebody and then you see them again.
The story of the girl from Greece would propel Common People up the charts, but its simple tune had hidden depths. Composer Gary Carpenter traces its roots back to, of all places, Germany.
If you really, really were to pull it apart, then you just do the part music.
But first, those classic lyrics. Are they a lyrical romp through the class system, a snapshot of 90s British society, or is it just a pop song?
Contact with guinea pigs that much.
And that was instant.
A psychologist, a poet, and a posh it girl gather together to see if they can unravel the mystery behind this elusive figure.
I think the chorus is a piece of very, very clever writing because you know just the words are going to hook you. And also it tells a story. It is like a short story. You've got defined characters, things happen, and at the end you've got an ambiguity about did they sleep together, did they not, and at the same time as being these specific images, it's talking about huge issues of class and maybe cultural history.
There's always been this idea, especially from slightly higher class ladies, that you know, the idea of a bit of rough or something, and that's quite exciting. And I'm, you know, I sort of fit into that stereotype as well, to my complete dismay. And I am a sucker for someone in a vest, and I can totally empathise with the girl from Greece to a point.
Wanna sleep with common people. I wanna sleep with common people like you.
So she's looking at him anthropologically. She's like somebody studying this strange tribe on a strange island called the working class, and she wants to study him as some kind of exemplar of that.
But I think there's another absolutely critical bit of the song, right? It is clearly an angry song. Yeah. And why is he so angry? Okay, part of it is the kind of class tourism thing. But the second part is, this woman wants to sleep with him because he's a representative of the category common people. That's like me saying to you, Anushka, I'd like to sleep with a posh girl, and you would do.
I'll do.
You would do. Yeah. It's not very flattering, sure. You know. And I think, you know, he's making a point. It's not very flattering. Yeah. This woman just wants to have an experience, and he could be the conduit for that experience.
That's a very good point.
Any common person would do.
She didn't understand. She just smiled and held my hand.
It's funny just because they're both obviously, you know, stereotyping each other completely, but unfortunately that urge to have sex with each other is just too strong.
There is a more sinister interpretation which kind of connects with what Ian said. Is this what psychologists would call projection? Is he projecting his own views into the Greek girl's mouth? Is it him who's looking down at common people, the common people he grew up with, and kind of distancing himself slightly from them? Is that what the song...
By May 1995, the video was in the can and the single was in the shops. The question now was, could Pulp emulate Britpop's Champs' Oasis and reach the #1 spot?
I suppose we could have found out where it was. I'm sure people did know the position, but we wanted a surprise, so we just sat around for a long time, as it turned out. And they got into the top 10, we were very excited.
And at number 10, it's Living Joy and Dreamer.
And you know...
Because we're in that big room, there were loads of other groups, weren't they? Gradually,
they kept going
gradually
out.
disappearing off.
Chesney Hawkes out now.
The beauty, it's like the beauty contest, you know. You know.
At number 7, the Nightcrawlers, Surrender Your Love.
We got to the top 5, you know, we were very excited.
Number 3 is Perez Prado with his orchestra at Guaglione.
And eventually, number 2, we were called out.
A new entry at number 2, Common People, it's Pulp.
Finding out in that way, it was pretty hard to be hacked off that you weren't number 1. Maybe later you might have thought it would have been nice to be number 1, but, you know, number 2 was pretty good.
But it wasn't one of Pulp's Britpop rivals who would keep them from the top of the charts. Annoyingly, it was a pair of TV actors who would croon their way to having the best-selling single of 1995, shifting over 1.5 million records. Common People stayed in the top 10 for a total of 4 weeks, but couldn't dislodge the duo from the number 1 spot. Suffice to say, the band weren't too impressed.
Well, it would have been nice, because, you know, they aren't doing a programme about Robson and Green's single, whatever it was called, I can't even remember, you know. But then, sometimes, that's just the way it goes, you know. Some great singles never made number 1, and you always think, surely that made number 1, and you know, you look in the book, no, number 2, and then it's, you know, that's just the way it is. Just look at the drawing now.
I just thought immediately it'd be a hit. I thought it'd go straight to number 1. And if it hadn't been for that flaming couple of blokes singing that silly song, it would have been.
Little things happened. I think it was on the local radio, and I was at home, and my daughter was about 2. She started jumping up and down to it, and she didn't know it was Daddy's song. And I thought, well, the last thing she jumped up and down to was like "The Only Way Is Up" by Yaz, and the fact that little kids liked it, and there was some other thing we liked at a school or something, and you'd notice that little kids jumped up and down to it, and you think, this is something to this.
Back to the tune, and composer Gary Carpenter gets stuck into finding out more about what makes Common People a Britpop classic.
I think that in terms of the musicianship displayed, I don't think that you can make a great case for it being one of the great musicianly tracks of all time. If you really, really were to pull it apart, then you just do the part music. I've been changing the part, but that's all it is really. So, given that it's got no minor chords, no extensions, no inversions, no riffs, it only has pumping bass, there's no syncopation, there's no modulation, there's no backing vocals, why is it a good song? And I think basically it's because it's driven by energy, and it's driven by a narrative. And I'm not talking about the narrative of the lyrics so much, it's actually this thing. It's that rhythmic break. It's the only rhythmic break, and it comes twice. And I think it's the one thing, without that, I think the song would kind of fall apart after verse 2. That if you actually did put in pushes and all the sort of things which, you know, kind of smart rock and roll stuff, you know, fills and all the rest of it, all the stuff that, you know, I suppose would be standard for, say, status quo, you'd diminish the song and the effect of it. It's the fact that it is so direct. And it's a kick-ass song. I mean, it's good, it hits. I mean, it's simple, it's direct, and it does the business.
One fact that only the most ardent of fans would know is that there is a vital part missing from the version of Common People we all know and love. The original producer's cut ran for a radio-unfriendly 6 minutes, and the band reluctantly realised something had to go.
The radio edit works well, but it loses the kind of last verse, which is which has the bit about you will never understand how it feels to live your life with no meaning and control. And that's kind of, whenever we perform the song live, that's the kind of punchline of the song, really. So it's kind of weird in a way that the version that most people would have heard kind of had that bit missing. But that was, that's the most kind of impassioned bit, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know, I suppose.
You called your daddy, could stop it all, yeah. Never live like common people. Never do what common people do. Never fail like common people. You never watch your life.
This is the first time Jarvis has heard the original vocals to Common People since he recorded them back in January 1995.
Else to do.
It's an unsettling experience.
Discuss.
Well, you know, I mean, listen to it on its own, it doesn't really work, though, does it? But, you know, as I said, the only things I've got going for me in the vocal is I either sing, it start quiet and get a bit louder, and then when you really want to get worked up, then you jump an octave higher. And, you know, the thing is, it works, and it's a committed vocal. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh yeah, okay, I'll sing it. It's having a go, and it kind of gets there in the end, you know.
It's a great vocal. It's a great vocal. I mean, you're just like riveted by it from beginning to end, from the whispering to sort of, you know, all the way to the sort of the mania at the end.
I was probably pissed, wasn't I?
So, normally used to
that used to be my that was my modus operandi in them days, was to get quite drunk and sing it maybe 5 times, and then I'm afraid you were left with the job of trying to find some usable bits out of it, weren't you?
Yeah, we'd normally get like about 3 good takes, and then we'd comp it.
The scathing lyrics about that girl from Greece would go down in pop history. But has the mystery behind her true identity finally been solved? At the Hellenic Centre in London is artist Klitsa Antonio. She was an art student at St Martin's College in 1988, the same time as Jarvis. She was also on the same sculpture crossover course, so she fits the bill. But does she remember ever seeing him?
I remember him, but I don't think I socialized with him, or he was my friend or anything. Yes, I remember him. It's very strange.
So could she be the one? Jarvis has the evidence now. Does he have the answer to this decade-old conundrum?
Let's have a look.
The sculpture cross for the crossover was...
No way.
At the moment I am living in Cyprus.
Despite his best efforts, it seems the mystery of who the girl from Greece really is destined to remain unsolved. It was the Stone Roses who were next to help propel Pulp to new levels of pop stardom. June 1995, weeks after reaching #2 in the charts with Common People, and it was the misfortunes of the Roses that would see Pulp play the most important gig of their lives.
During the recording of the album, we got a phone call saying John Squire's fallen off his mountain bike. He's fractured his collarbone. Do you want to take the Stone Roses headlining slot on Saturday night at Glastonbury?
What? Saturday night? Oh! It was, you know, really kind of, you know, make your mouth go very dry and kind of like, oh my God.
But it was like, oh Christ, Saturday night, headlining. And I just feel I know Stone Roses didn't do it on purpose, but I feel that it did us a real favour.
Pulp were given the prestigious headline slot on Saturday night, Common People being the climax of a performance that would go down in Glastonbury history.
And it was just massive, and it was just so kind of like stadium-like, and you suddenly realise that this song was just... it was one of those songs that could just really get everybody singing, everyone up on their feet.
Like common people, you want to see whatever common people see. Want to sleep with common people. You want to sleep with common people like me. But she didn't understand. And she just smiled and held my hand.
Just the warmth that he radiated through the record, standing on stage, would come across to everyone who was there. People felt a real affinity, I still do, I'm sure, feel a real affinity for a man who, you know, wrote an album in his mum's kitchen and drove around in a Hillman inn. I mean, you know, that's a man of the people, and you're going to give him a bit more leeway on stage than probably a lot of other people would. But having said that, they were great that night anyway. They rose, you know, they really rose to the occasion. They played a fantastic set.
But at the very end, they put the lights on the audience, and that was the first time we'd seen the audience. And there, shockingly, were like 100,000 people all going mad to this song.
That particular incident was I've never felt anything like it. I imagine I probably never will experience anything like that again. If somebody made a film about Pulp's career, which that would be the final scene, wouldn't it? You know, they've made it. Ta-da! It all turns out all right in the end, happy ending. But, you know, life isn't like that. Life goes on. And you have to do something different. You can't live in a moment for the rest of your life, you know.
Pulp would go on to produce the Mercury Prize-winning album Different Class, featuring hits such as Misshapes.
Brothers, sisters, can't you see? The future's owned by you and me.
Sorted for Ease and Whiz,
In the middle of the night, it feels alright, but then tomorrow morning, then you come down.
and of course, Disco 2000.
Let's throw it up in the year 2000. Won't it be strange when we're all fully grown?
Though they have no plans to perform again in the future, Jarvis has recently recorded material for his first solo album. Today, Common People lives on from Sheffield's own goth band Libertina. To Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner.
She came from Greece. She had a thirst for knowledge. She studied sculpture at St. Martin's College. That's where I caught her eye.
You want to sit with common people like me, but she didn't.
But it's the original version by Pulp that will live on in the hearts of its fans. It sold 300,000 copies on release and came to define an era, inspiring a new Britpop generation.
Here we are, 10 years after Common People came out, talking about it as seeing it still as being a pertinent and exciting piece of music. And you know that in 50 years' time, people will talk about it in the same way.
Roaches climb the wall. If you called your dad, he could stop it. Oh, yeah.
At the same time, there's Oasis and Blur, and Pulp were like the antithesis of them, because they seemed like they were trying too hard, and Pulp were right in the middle and not trying and being better than the pair of them.
I think people still play it because it sounds good. You know, some songs just 10 years later still sound energetic and dynamic and exciting.
Sounds fresh, it still sounds punchy, it's still got something to say to people.
Enough time has passed now that I kind of like hearing it. It sounds good to me.
I remember at one point thinking, I wish we could write a song that would just be fantastic forever and ever and ever. And this was after Come On People, it was like later, and then I thought, oh, we have.
I always think it still comes across quite well. It's still got some energy to it, still is excited, so, you know, you can't really ask for more than that. If a record's 10 years old and it still seems to be alive, you know. God knows how that happened.
We're up to more mischief tomorrow night at 10:30 here on 3, this time in dirty hospitals. Next though, ferocious Mr. Fix-It.